Welcome back, Premier Planet, to another episode of the Premier Planet Podcast. Justin Barlow, Rockin' Randy Ritchie coming back at you. And Rand, you sound a lot better.
Oh, I
Kick
feel
that
better.
Influenza?
Not yet. It's still hanging on. 2 weeks of influenza A. But I worked out today, so hopefully that will help me sleep better.
Yeah, sweat it out a little bit.
The cough is killing me. So, as we were talking on a personal level, I've had so much experience, and I've known you 7-8 years, that you don't even know half of it because I don't really gloat about it. Sometimes I forget about it, but other times I don't think about how pertinent that situation might have been in, the history of the business. And one of the things I've been getting out of the blue contacts about is world class championship wrestling. I was there when it closed. I was there when it closed, and I think that, I found out that a lot of the information from the experiences I had down there are very important to certain people. You know what I mean?
Well, world class is a big deal. I mean, you're talking about the Von Erichs, you're talking about the Sportatorium. This man actually wrestled in the Sportatorium, which is considered today to be wrestling holy ground, even though it's sadly no longer with us.
Yeah, the Mid-South Coliseum, I was lucky enough, and also the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas, I loved working in Memphis. I loved working in Memphis, and we were working every night. Unbelievable experience.
And you rubbed elbows with some big names, the Jarretts, Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, I won them over.
Yeah.
So I'm in Memphis, and I formed a really outstanding kinship with a guy named Sweet Daddy Falcone. His real name is Tim Roberts, and he doesn't care if I give up his name, but Tim was an amazing athlete, especially for his size. This guy naturally was 6'6", 290 pounds. He would fluctuate from 290 to 340. I would say Timmy was real smart. He wasn't that dependent on the sauce to get big. He just knew how to work out. He knew a lot about weight training, especially for that time. Genetics, and he knew how to, he just got gains like a mother effer, The guy was so big, but the problem with him was his knee. You see, back then they didn't know what they know now about knees. He had that thing reconstructed before he got into pro wrestling. Jarrett's brought him in to work with Bill Dundee, or actually Bill Dundee brought him into Memphis to work with him because that was Bill's gimmick, was the giant killer, And me and Timmy just really ended up forming an outstanding relationship. He's one of the guys in the wrestling industry that I haven't seen him in I don't know how long, but I know I could count on him if I needed to. You know what I mean? So Tim was in Memphis, and at the time Jarrett started dabbling in Dallas. It was some sort of partnership with Kerry, Kevin, and Jerry Jarrett. Everybody wanted to get a piece of that ESPN money because it was found money, and for the first time that I know of anyway, probably in wrestling history, ESPN was paying for footage. So, that being said, the territory wasn't what it once was. Unfortunately, the boys, and meaning the Von Erich boys, killed off the territory, by no showing and by showing up messed up. And they were trying to mount a comeback as Kerry just got hired by Vince. So the way I've heard it is Kevin and Kerry actually went to Jerry Jarrett and asked them to partner up on this deal and try to make a comeback for World Class Championship Wrestling with an undercard. So I'm sitting there one day, and then one of the things I learned was a great time to call Jerry Jarrett. Once I was wrestling every night or 8 times a week for 6 weeks at a time, and then having one Sunday off every 6 weeks, was how to get a hold of Jerry. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to wrestle for a living. That was amazing. It was the last full-time territory. They ran more dates than anybody did. And when I went to the Mid-South Coliseum, and I went to the Louisville Gardens on Tuesday, I went to Evansville, Indiana on Wednesday, and then the spot towns, to me it was good business because the buildings were pretty much almost full. But I didn't have any idea of what it was even just a few years earlier, where they were turning people away at the Mid-South Coliseum on Monday nights to see pro wrestling. And that's what Jerry was struggling to try to recapture. you know?
Yeah.
You got to respect the shit out of them because they ran those same towns, one way, shape, or form, for almost 30 years. Their biggest nights of the week were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but primarily Mondays at the Mid-South Coliseum. Unbelievable. So, once I left there, I went down for a 3-day tryout and ended up staying 9 months. All I wanted to do was get back. That's what I wanted to do from there on out. You couldn't think. All you could do was get up, go to the gym, eat, get on the road, go to the town, get in trouble, come back home, start over again and repeat. I mean, that was just an awesome, outstanding way to live. But what I loved the most about it was learning. The learning was unbelievable. At that point, I wasn't no way, shape, or form so cocky that I even would call myself a professional wrestler. But if I was one of the guys that was here working once a month in the indies or the independents, which they used to call them outlaws, there's no way in God's green earth I would call myself a wrestler, because we weren't on TV and you weren't working every night of the week, you know? So I learned when to call Jerry, and we would always have these outstanding talks on Sunday evenings. For whatever reason, Jerry would end his week, start his week, Sunday nights in the office, in his home, and I'd call him and I'd try to find a way to get back in there. That's all I wanted to do. And he was telling me things where I thought he was just blowing smoke up my ass about how the territory was down. I wouldn't want to come back. And I didn't believe that shit. You know what I mean? You know, especially within a year of when I was there and seeing how good the business was. So, you know, after a few months of this, all of a sudden, I got to go stay in my parents' house for a stint after Memphis, and the telephone rings, and it's Bill Dundee. And Bill's one who originally, he was the booker when he brought me into Memphis, and he calls and says, "Mate, want you to come to Dallas. You and me will be the top babyface tag team. Jeff will be the top babyface. When can you come?" You know? And I said, "Just 1 minute, Bill," because there was a ruckus at my parents' front door. And I opened the door, and my sister had just left her husband, so I didn't know from nothing. And I opened the door, and I said, "Get the F out of here," and I smacked him. And I smacked him, and he fell on the driveway, and then I kicked him down the driveway, and then I went and talked to Bill and said, "I'll see you this Friday night in Dallas." You know? Then as I'm talking to Bill to get all that stuff done, I look up, and there's 2 cops there, and I says, "Oh, Bill, gotta go, but I should see you Friday." You know?
Just try and make up a story like that. You can't make up a story like that.
That's a legit shoot. But at the end of the day, thank God one of those cops I went to school with.
Oh.
And I was in part in the right. But I do kind of feel bad knowing what I know now. But then at the time, they created this guy as a monster in my head. But anyway, so I loaded up the truck and went to Dallas. Now, the cool part about this was Sweet Daddy lived down there. He was working that territory there. He had some family there. And he was also working as a bartender in DeSoto, which was a dry town / dry county. And he was doing that. He had a place to stay, you know, and he was able to work that Dallas territory. So he was pretty happy landed on his feet down there, working Fridays and Saturday nights. And Timmy, then when I was come down there, decided to schedule his second knee reconstruction. So it worked out good because I would work the territory, and then I would take his job while he was down with the surgery and recovery, and also help him get through that stuff, because it was way different, way worse than it is now. I mean, I think he was in the hospital for almost a week.
Yeah, well, and back then, I mean, you didn't have the job security you have today with the major companies. I mean, you went out, somebody else took your spot.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I didn't take Timmy's spot. Timmy was a great big giant ass heel. You know, they brought me in to be a babyface with Bill, and that was cool. But what I was grateful for was just having that place to stay and having somebody that I knew and trusted and loved to help walk me through the ropes, you know. So I showed up on Friday, and this was the oddest thing. I walk in, you know, and there's Bill, there's Jeff Jarrett, there's Jerry Jarrett. I met Kevin, I met Fritz, and this was, and I'm not burying the guy, this was supposed to be Chris Von Erich's first match. And from what I understand, and it was pretty evident, it's a shoot. Chris had a real hard time with the fact that he was the shrimpiest of the Von Erichs. He just wasn't as genetically gifted as the Von Erichs. And although Kerry had an outstanding body, Kevin had an outstanding body too, so did David. And Mike was small. Mike was probably about my size, but poor Chris was probably 5 inches shorter than Mike. So he was real stressed out because it was almost expected of him, or he wanted that, or he was considered a Von Erich. It was his first match, and they did some build-up my first night in, where he was supposed to work with Skandor Akbar, and they built it up quite a bit. This was Chris's first professional match. I mean, outside of run-ins and all that shit to build it. Akbar was old. Skandor Akbar was old as hell, but he could still carry him through a decent match. It was a good thing, and it was a good thing for him to be put in that position. Well, this was Friday night, and we were taping television for Channel 11 in Dallas, and then Saturdays we were taping for ESPN. So the first thing is that Chris didn't show up, you know, and it's 5 minutes before bell time, and they found Chris in the parking lot in nothing but his socks. A couple of rats took him out and got him all fucked up and rolled him and dropped him off at the Sportatorium.
And for those of you who don't know what a rat is basically a wrestling groupie.
Yeah, it's a bad connotation. Like, I don't like to use it very much, but in my mind's eye, if you're gonna roll somebody like that and take advantage of that situation, you're a fucking rat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It fits.
Yeah, so I mean, Chris did what he did, but that certainly didn't help anything. So I mean, that's I didn't get a whole hell of a lot of attention, point being the new guy in there that's gonna be a babyface with Kevin or Fritz, because they more than had their hands full trying to explain that shit away. You know what I mean? So I'm told nothing, you know, they're happy to see me, that's it. You know, I always made it a point to be the first one at the building. Always, house show, TV, whatever the fuck territory, first one at the fucking building. You know, that's how I got over. Yeah, I could bring Sweet Daddy with me, but I say, no, brother, let me handle this myself, handle my own business. I have to go in there and do my own business first, establish my own relationships with this new company, and meet these people on my own. That's how I do things. You know, it's balls out, Natalie, eye contact, firm handshakes, you know, all that shit. And, you know, I go in and nobody says a word to me. After a few hours, it's getting closer to bell time. I'm like, maybe I should ask a question. Well, I'm afraid to ask a question still because, yeah, I'm in the business 3 years, 4 years, and I've been working the Memphis territory, and I knew Bill. But I also know that if I get in Bill's shit, he's going to get in my shit and say, you fucking Mark, don't worry about it. You know, and I don't want to be that guy again. I made that mistake when I broke in. I ain't going 1 step forward, 2 step backwards. I just shut my fucking face. So, I say, I know those guys. That's Mike Davis and Kevin Dillinger. They're the rock and roll RPMs. I know those guys. I never met them before, but I knew who they were. They were great heels. They made tremendous money in Puerto Rico and the territories. And I see Percival Pringle. That's where I first met Percy Pringle, Paul Barry. You know, I know Paul. I meet Chris Adams. Our paths crossed at some point when I was doing jobs for Vince or somebody. You know, we don't know each other very well, but it's a familiar face. And that's when I met Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yeah, I think he was Steve Austin at the time, but I don't know. So the way that they talked about this guy, oh man, he's new to the business, he's green, he's got 3 or 4 months in the industry, he's being trained by Chris. Look at the size of him, which he was 275 fucking pounds. Shoot, coming out of college football, had some notoriety from that in the area. But the biggest thing was that he would do whatever the fuck they asked him to do. Taking insane bumps. And at the end of the day, he ended up, what his position was to try to keep Chris Adams relevant. You know what I mean? Which they did. They did together for a long time. They both benefited from that. Chris, because he was an old guy that still looked good, getting to work with this blonde kid who's been essentially putting him over, and Stone Cold with a guy like Chris Adams who'd been down there and feuded with the fucking Freebirds and then tagged with Gino Hernandez and were amazingly fucking hot heels against the Von Erichs. So that's what happened. So anyway, long story short, long story longer. there's our music. I didn't know it was our music. Bill says, our music, mate. Get ready. I go, okay. So we're walking out to the ring. I know we're working the rock and roll RPMs, Mike Davis and Kevin Dillinger. They're very stiff with me, especially fucking Mike. You know what I mean? But again, it's like re-meeting Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler again for the first time when I walked into the Mid-South. So I got to learn how to play these politics and no-sell. I'm fucking freaking the fuck out. I just drove from Chicago to Dallas by myself with $100 to my fucking name to be pushed as one of the top baby faces in the tag team. You know, nobody's saying shit to me. You know, so as the four of us are getting ready to walk through the building and walk through the crowd, which was fucking insane, by the way, just insane to walk that fucking aisle that I've been watching since 1982 or 82. Well, you know, because World Class was the first syndicated television program, followed by Bill Watts, outside of Turner or WWF or WWE. That was a fucking trip in its own. Anything I should know? No, mate. Just get ready to sell a lot. I go, that's great. You know? So I thought I got worked. You know? Yeah. Nobody says shit to me. I'm in this fucking ring. I'm in this ring where the posts were actually concreted into the building. You couldn't adjust that ring. There was no under cables. You could tighten the ropes, but it didn't do shit because its posts stay in the concrete.
So the ring was a part of the building?
The building was built for wrestling. It dipped like a semi-bowl, and that's where the ring was in the middle. So the first thing I did is take some sort of big fucking bump and went, oh my God. And I remember Mike Davis and Bill Dundee laughing their ass off going, mate, it's not like the Memphis ring, is it? You know what I mean?
Was it more like a boxing ring where there wasn't a whole lot of give?
Worse. It was like a fucking slab. And you can watch that shit. There's only a few crazy bastards that took legit bumps in there because it was a fucking nightmare. You know what I mean? I mean, it was expected me because I was small, but oh my God, no more fucking slams off the top while I was in Dallas, I don't think, after something like that, you know? And nobody tells me shit. Next thing you know, our hands are raised. And I'm going, I guess I did walk into a little bit of a push. You know what I mean? But that's the thing about it. That's what Bill says. Hey, that's why we brought you here. That's why we brought you down here. You can fucking work. Now it's your time. You have worked your dick off and put every one of us over our old asses at the Memphis territory. You did anything we fucking asked you to do. Now's your time. Yeah. You know? I'm like, God damn. And they always call me, they'd say I was a good boy, I was a good hand. I said, what the fuck's that mean, good boy? You know what I mean? I was kind of like an insult, I thought, but in the South, that's one of the highest compliments.
Oh, yeah. It's like when they say, bless your heart, you know what it means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm happy. You know, I'm really happy. I mean, I'm like, well, you know, I don't expect much at that point. I know I'm still fucking green. I know what a wrestler is. I know that I'm lucky to be in that fucking locker room. And I know that I'm double lucky to be performing in the fucking sportatorium and have my fucking hand raised. I know I am fortunate. I'm a lucky motherfucker. Yes, I worked my ass off, but there was nowhere to work at the time, except for Vince and WCW. Right. And I know, because I was trying really hard to get into Oregon, and Don Owens just closed that promotion out of necessity. So there was nowhere to go to hone the craft or work. Even though I was happy, I wanted to be in Memphis working 5 days a week at least, which is what they're running at the time. But it's okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll take that.
Hey, five days a week of work. I mean, compare that to if you had been working for Crockett or if you've been working for Vince at the time. I mean, how much better was your ring work working 5 days a week? You know,
that's about what they were working, but the money was better. You know. The territory was starting to hurt. It was dying. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about the Mid-South. And in the Mid-South at that time was quite fucking recessed. A $10 ticket here in 1988, 89 would sell for $2 on there because that was the difference in the economy. We would go to towns in that territory that didn't fucking, people lived in homes without running water and electricity. You can only go to those towns once a year and sell it out because it's the only entertainment they had. But honest to Christ, there was a lot of towns that were like that. So these are things that I'd never seen before. You know what I mean? Until I went to the Mid-South. But, so World Class, I go to bed happy, you know, I'm happy. Wake up the next day, go to do television for ESPN, you know. And that, for the national, I don't know. All I know is this, I'm the first one at the building, okay? Where's Bill? Where's Jerry? Jeff? Nobody. I'm like, huh. So I'm sitting there keeping to that keep quiet shit, spoken to shit, going, what the fuck is going on? And everybody's looking at me now. I was familiar with some, but these were Dallas people. These were Von Erichs. These were Von Erich people. So I'm an outsider. You know what I mean? And I'm like, huh, what's going on? Well, that's what I found out. Fritz and Kevin, and now Kerry's working for Vince at the time, as the Texas Tornado. And you know, Vince wanted Kerry for a long time. He was getting paid well. They, overnight, decided that they were going to make a power play with Jarrett, that they didn't need him anymore, because the house was coming up. But I don't think it was personal. I think it was business, and to some extent, ego. I mean, we're talking about Denton County, Dallas, Texas, Fritz Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, with Kerry trying to get over for Vince so he could come back and help pop the territory once he had a name there again, you know what I mean? They forced them out or locked them out of the building. They had to deal with the building. They thought, Fritz and Kevin, that they had the television rights to not only Channel 11, which was Dallas TV, but also the ESPN, which was going to keep them afloat. Well, then Jerry got on the defense and started playing human chess, or chess, and the fucking TV was tied up. We didn't have Dallas or ESPN. And I says, wow, so what, wow. And they're like, well, we thought you would have went to Memphis with the Jarretts. And I'm like, nobody said a goddamn thing to me. I came down here to work, you know? So it was cool, because then what they did with me, without a whole hell of a lot of talking to, impromptu, on the fly, so while this motherfucker came down to Chicago by himself, we thought he came from Memphis with them. He showed up today. He did get over last night. They did try to bring in one of the Simpsons, but couldn't get him over. He got over last night. We'll see what happens. So they teamed me and a local kid against Timmy Talltree, which was Timmy Renesto, or the great Renesto's brother, and Louis Spicoli. Remember Louis?
I remember Louis.
And Louis Spicoli, and they pinned my partner, you know. Now that was on the local TV, but we found out after that TV ran, we didn't have any TV.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
So by sheer luck, you ended up right place, right time, but then you didn't have the television exposure. So it was like, well, a give and take.
Right place, right time, insofar as I got over what they decided to do, and they finally pitched it. And this was the rock and roll RPMs, Dillinger, and mostly Mike Davis, and also Percival Pringle. They liked me for some reason. Mike always told me, though, Mike Davis, who was really fucking stiff with me the first night, always told me that I have friends in high places that I wasn't even aware of, and I never really pushed him to find out what the fuck he meant. But at the end of the day, those guys all stuck their necks out for me and said, let's get this motherfucker going. They knew on the sly Kevin and Fritz would eventually have to get back with Jerry if we were going to get the TVs back. And everybody wanted that ESPN TV at the time, because that was guaranteed revenue, you know, beyond the gate. You know what I mean? 3 weeks in, Mike and Kevin took me under their wing, and what they said they'll do is we were milking it for as long as we could. It went 6 months, where I would go out there with a different partner, feud with the RPMs, and my different partner would get beat. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was outstanding, again, like going back to right place, right time, is learning how to be a fucking baby face from a heel like Mike Davis. Kevin Dillinger was an outstanding heel, don't get me wrong. But Mike Davis was a fucking real vet. And he taught me a shitload. And at the end of the day, I was a drawing babyface. I was the last thing down there to draw organically for World Class Championship Wrestling, you know? We all were making the same $75 a night. It didn't matter if it was the fucking Booker Akbar. It didn't matter if it was Percival Pringle, who was part of the booking committee. It didn't matter if it was the referee Bronco Lubitsch. It didn't matter if it was Matt fucking Bourne. It didn't matter if it was Stone Cold Steve Austin. It didn't matter if it was Christopher fucking Adams. We all made $75 a night to wrestle. And we all accepted that, even though it sucked, while waiting to try to get something going. You know? So, what would happen is everybody would have to have a night off a month. Now I'm going, what the fuck? I really want to learn this shit. I love working down here. It's this fucking sportatorium, man. I want to learn. I want to learn. I want to learn. There's so much more to learn. I don't want to just be good. I want to be great. I want to be one of the greats. Calling Jerry's giving me the pitch about there's no money here and all that shit. I'm like, well, can you give me a guarantee? Can you give me a guarantee? I can't give you a guarantee. Any kind of fucking guarantee. We learned how to live there cheap. I knew the hotels to stay at. I knew how to pair up with guys. I knew friends that I could stay with for nothing in Memphis, friends that I could stay with for nothing in the Nashville side of the territory. Just didn't want to bring me in because he didn't want to get my hopes up, you know? So I stayed down there patiently for 6 months, and it was 6 months and I never got a night off. One of the things that was great for me was, in addition to the $75, I was smart enough to come down there with a Polaroid, because I learned how to sell Polaroids in my pictures for $2. You know, in Memphis, I mean, man, they were monetizing kings, optimizing kings to learn how to survive. And I was selling a fuckload. I was selling like another $150 a week in gimmicks. Now that was great because it wasn't so bad. I was staying with Sweet Daddy's uncle. I was working part-time at Sweet Daddy's uncle's Pizza Inn and Bar. And I had that gimmick money coming in so I could survive, make my car payments and shit like that. Then finally one day, you know, I got down and Akbar called and said, well, Rand, we've been putting this off as long as possible, but you're going to have your Friday off, or your week off. And I was like, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to go home. Because I told myself, the first time I get that week off, I'm just going to go home. What's the point, you know, if I'm working 3 days a month, you know? But they called right back and said, wait, a girl just came and she was going to buy reserve 2 rows of tickets, which meant like 30 people, you know? But we told her you weren't working this week because you weren't on the moniker. She canceled her order. Can you work tonight? And I was like, no, I'm going to go home anyway. You know what I mean? I wish I would have stayed, you know? But there was a lot of amazing stuff with fill in the blanks and bullshit. I mean, you hear a lot of stories, and Fritz wasn't an asshole. Kevin was a prince who was always on my side. You know what I mean? I didn't suck anybody's ass. They know that you're full of shit if you suck their ass and swing from their nuts. Nut swingers always come with strings attached. But I was respectful and I worked fucking hard, and I was the first one there and the last to leave and did whatever the fuck was asked of me. You know what I mean? But I got to see a lot of really cool things. Paul Bearer, Percy befriended me. You know, I'll close with this story because it's outstanding. If anybody wants to hear more about the world-class stuff, ask. Angel of Death was there. Dog of War was there. Rod Price was there. Foley would come in. Now, Foley would come by sometimes when we're down there just to visit. You know what I mean? Just to visit and stay for a couple of days. He wasn't even working or booked. He was working for WCW at the time and had time off, you know. I think that's all I can think of off the top of my head that were there that would be relevant. Louis Spicoli was great to me, but in the same token, he lost the spot to me because I got over, you know what I mean? Which was okay. I mean, it was accepted. There was no heat.
You know, it's a natural order.
Yeah.
Especially in the territories.
What the hell was I? Oh, so the first night I meet Percy Pringle, and they had put together and decided that we were going to ride this out with this partnership to keep the tag story alive between me and the RPMs until, you know, the Jarretts could come back in. It was me and Bill against the RPMs, because that was fucking fun. And I think at that point, when you're a Mike Davis, you're in Dallas, not because you necessarily want to be, but because you're 40 years old and wrestling is all you know, and you just got your break from Puerto Rico or wherever they were making their real money. They had to set up shop somewhere to try to survive in the meantime, you know? So it was fun for Bill Dundee and a Mike Davis to get in there and work an angle and see how it fucking does. You know what I mean? But it was really cool because Percy and I decided, okay, well, here's what we'll do to make that shit even hotter. I'll manage the RPMs. You know, they put me with Sweet Brown Sugar or Skip Young. They beat Skip Young. Then they put me with local guys. They beat the local guy. You know what I mean? But then it was, I learned a lot, and I learned how to sell, and I learned how to draw money. So second or third time in with these guys, like I said, the first night, nobody says shit to me. You know, the second night, I hit Mike Davis up and I was like, hey man, can I try a spot with you? You see that knee, kid? You see how bold that knee is? No, I ain't gonna do your stupid shit, your stupid fucking high spots, and you fuck. You wanna do some shit, talk to the fat motherfucker, my partner, because I ain't doing shit with you. I ain't doing shit with you. This knee's hanging by a thread, blah, blah, blah. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. You know what I mean? To the third time, he goes, oh kid, you're the best, you're the best. I don't know what I did. Mike loves me, right? He says, so tonight we're going to do this shit. Percy's going to start managing us. We're going to keep this thing alive. If it takes 6 months, it takes 6 months until the Jarrett's come back and we can do that shit with Bill like we planned. There's money in, there's money in, there's money in. Here's what I want you to do tonight. So, and then me and Kevin will be out there with Percy. Don't tell Percy it's coming, but hit the ropes and hit us with that suicide